Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Eric. I am Jake. Our guy Mon is about to be on 2-1. Mon, there he is, the man, the myth, the legend. Without the stash, Mon said this is the 2025 look. Without the stash, Mon, how you feeling without that thing, bud?
It might come back during football season, but that was 2024 mustache. We can't have that. Everything has to, we need to purge 2024 when it comes to Bengals. So it's gone. All right. And I'm going to debate if I'm going to bring it back. A lot of people say I look younger. I like those kind of words. So might just keep it off. Might just keep it off.
Depends on who comments on this video and says they like the stash. The right comments, and he might be growing that way out.
Eric, when we were off air, I told Mon he looks 10 years younger without it. He said, okay, it's not coming back.
Done.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. This is a defensive episode. Every year after the season, we like to break down both sides of the ball and grade them out. I love these episodes, Mon. We figured why not start with the defense, guys, right? I mean, we're searching for not just a new defensive coordinator, but pretty much an entire defensive staff, as we found out earlier in the week, that two more defensive staff members were released. That is now gentlemen, 5 jobs that are open on the defensive side of the ball. And again, right now we are recording this. It is Wednesday night. So if any news has broken in the next 24 hours, please forgive us. We will try to jump on live if a new coach is hired here in the next day or so. But so far, guys, we are still looking for an entire new defensive staff. So, Mon, Eric, we have decided tonight to break down all 5 positions on the defensive side of the ball: the interior defensive line, the DNs, edge rushers, linebackers, corners, and safeties. We're going to break each one of those down, and Mon and I are going to grade those out. But before we do all of that, Mon, how's your week been, buddy?
Good. Battling a little bit of a bug here, but I feel a little better. Everything is good. I just really anxious to see who the new defensive coordinator is going to be. I think it's going to be such a huge hire.
Huge.
And it's been a lot of speculation on Twitter with other names popping up. I feel pretty comfortable who it's going to be, because the longer it stretches out, I think we know what the Bengals are doing. But we'll talk about that in a few minutes. I can't wait to find out who these new coaches are going to be.
Eric, how you been, bud?
Been good. We are 5 hours away from our inaugural launch. Had some issues on Monday, so it didn't happen. So we're on the 5-hour countdown now. Pretty confident it's going to go tonight, as long as the waves aren't too bad. So it's a good distraction from sitting here and constantly refreshing Twitter, trying to get some Bengals news. It's as bad as free agency right now. You're constantly refreshing, saying, "Where's my coordinator? Where's my T. Higgins extension? Where's my Jamar extension?" So it's a good distraction from that. Good, exciting week. Ready to talk some Bengals.
Let's talk some Bengals, guys. Let's start off, before we get into grading this side of the ball. Let's talk about the coaching situation so far and where it's at. Once again, the Bengals did release 2 more defensive staff members. So now looking for not just a linebacker coach, not just a D-line coach, not just a defensive coordinator, not just an O-line coach, but we are also looking for 2 of the defensive assistants. So again, guys, the belief has been that the Bengals have already figured out who it is they're going to hire, because whoever it is, I'm guessing, is going to bring in their own staff. That is why the Bengals have cleaned house. that is what the rumors are. That's what the thought process is for the Bengals, at least speculated. But obviously, right now, we don't know what is going on. I like that title, is no news, good news. I guess it depends on who you want, right? There was some other names released this week that I know the three of us were not very happy about. One of them, Joe Burrow, basically retired. So let's hope that the search steers away. I don't even want to mention the name to talk it into existence because I would be extremely pissed if that would be the hire. Guys, Lou Anarumo is getting a lot of looks, Mon. I want to ask you this. Getting a lot of looks, is this a good look for the Bengals? Is this a bad look? I think we all feel like the Bengals had to move on from Lou, but he is very popular right now in these defensive coordinator interviews. Mon, you said it earlier, the Bengals have to get a home run with this hire, right? I mean, they got to get a guy that can come in right away and change that side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. He's a very well-respected coach. He had a lot of success in Cincinnati, and to his defense, a lot of his good players aren't here anymore, and they moved on to other teams. I think the main issue with Lou Anarumo, he needs to go to a defense that has established veterans, because he's going to put them in the right place, and he's going to be one hell of a defensive coordinator for that team. I think the problem in Cincinnati was he just didn't want to play the younger guys, didn't have faith in them, didn't develop them. And that's what hurt this team. We're going to talk about positional Bengals defensive positional rankings here. We're going to talk about some of these players. They just did not perform under Lou Anarumo. And I think that's the reason the Bengals moved on. I get it. I think they had to. But at the same time, he could have 4 or 5 people interested in him as defensive coordinator. He's going to be a defensive coordinator for a team next year, and I think he's going to be successful.
Interesting, Eric. That the Falcons, one of those teams he's interviewed with. Obviously, a lot of people want to see him reunite with Jesse Bates. Obviously, Jesse Bates knows his defense very well. This defense was humming when Jesse was here. What are your thoughts on Lou maybe reuniting with Jesse in Atlanta?
I mean, I think it would be great for Lou. I'm a Bengals fan through and through. There'll be a poet here. So when you're not on the Bengals, outside of Boomer Esiason leaving, like once you're gone, you're gone. I'm not going to worry about whether you have success or not. I do agree with Mon. I think Lou thrives. He's very, very good at scheming up defenses against very good quarterbacks, but he needs really good, strong, smart veterans. So I think he would thrive in Atlanta with Jesse Bates and the defense they put together. Not so much here because we're going to rely more on younger guys and being able to play those younger guys. So good luck to wherever Lou goes. I think he does land one of those jobs this year, but no longer a Bengal, so I'm not going to worry about his success. That's where I am with it.
Ooh, I like it. Cold as ice.
I love Lou Dini, but I'm not going to lose sleep studying whether he's going to be successful. It's just I got to study our guys.
I like that side of you, Eric. I like that side of you.
Don't cross me, Jake. You'll be out. You'll be muted.
Mon, let me ask you, Mon. I'll ask you the same thing, Eric. Guys, pick 2 right now. I mean, who are 2 defensive coordinators? If the news was broken tomorrow, Mon, I'll start with you. Who are two defensive coordinators' names that you would be like, let's roll. I'm excited. I'm growing the stash back. It's Mon time. Who would be 2 names that you would absolutely love to hear, Mon?
If right now I want a veteran defensive coordinator that's had success in this league. I want a Dennis Allen or an Eberflus. I don't think it's going to be them, but that's who I want. The Bengals have to get it right. Are there young, talented defensive coordinators in college that know football, that are great coaches? Absolutely. They could come in and they could potentially be great defensive coordinators. We don't have that luxury. We just had one of the best offensive performances by players in the history of the NFL. And that's not hyperbole. That the history of the NFL, we didn't make the playoffs because our defense was that bad. And we need to get guys in here who can improve that unit. And I don't want a 35, 36-year-old guy that's never been a defensive coordinator in the NFL. I don't know if I want that person. And so I want Matt Eberflus, who, when he was in Indianapolis, guys, they were not a great defense. He came in, they had top 10 units for 3 years. And he's proven. Chicago had a great defense underneath him, very solid defense. He's not a good head coach. He can't manage the clock. We all know about that on Thanksgiving Day. He's not going to have to do that in Cincinnati, but that would be one of my top choices. And Dennis Allen, I've always been a big fan of. Saying that, I don't think it's going to be those guys. I think they already know who the coach is going to be. I think they already have pretty much a gentleman's agreement.
All right, Eric, give me 2 names that you absolutely want to hear, and one of them better not have the word wink in it.
No, we will never have wink. We will never have blink. We'll never have a martini because we don't want Martindale here. Get out of here. Take that trash out of here. This is very much Bengals type of operations. We've only heard about 2 interviews. I don't know why that is. Have they talked to other people? Have they interviewed people? Why did we hear about those 2 and we haven't heard about any other conversations? It's very, very frustrating. With that, I will go and I would say I would like this to be like the Orlando Brown Jr. news. We never thought that it was an option. Next thing we know, Orlando Brown Jr. signed with the Bengals. Give me Robert Saleh out of nowhere. Bring him in. I want a guy that has passion and emotion that can hype these young guys up. I mean, let's face it, his defense is going to be filled with first-year, second-year, third-year players. We need a guy that can motivate young men and mold them into, high-performing young men. So give me a guy like Robert Saleh, somebody like that. The biggest thing that I want to hear is that we've interviewed Dennis Allen, we've interviewed Eberflus, we've talked to these guys. We're hearing crickets right now. If we have to pick from the candidates that we know that they're interested in, I'll take Graham. Ace has hyped me up enough on him. I think he can come in and turn these young men into, nice, respectful, mean defensive players. So if that's my choices, that's who I'm taking. I'm not real excited about waiting around for Al Golden. Maybe he'll be the best thing since Dick LeBeau, but I'm not sure. What about you?
That's really the thought, right, guys? Is Al Golden? Mon is not saying the name. I think he doesn't want to talk it into existence as well. But obviously, who we're talking about is Al Golden, and Al Golden obviously going to be coaching in the national championship game for Notre Dame on the 20th, this coming up Monday. It is a little nerve-wracking. The Bengals have not looked at it. I think maybe with the Robert Saleh thing is he's obviously interviewing for head coaching jobs right now. Same with Graham. Graham's interviewing for head coaching jobs as well. So I think some of these DCs maybe are out there. And there's a lot of DC openings. And now, obviously, with McCarthy leaving Dallas, another head coaching job opening. So I think that might be the delay a little bit. But I'm with you guys. Mon, I think you said it perfectly. It's got to be an experienced guy. It's got to be a guy that can come in right away. And I don't want some 38-year-old DC from college coming in trying to figure his way through. The Bengals have an incredible offense. They need to fix the defense now. This team will be a Super Bowl contending team next year if they're able to do that. But I do. I like Saleh. I like Graham. I like Allen. And I like Eberflus. I think any of those 4 guys I truly would be happy with. I'm not sure I'd be happy with Al Golden. I'm not sure I'm on that.
Let's talk about him. I don't know a lot of what he's brought to Notre Dame other than that they're playing for a national championship. But I think someone brought up earlier on one of the podcasts I listened to that he was the linebackers coach when our linebackers were really, really good. And since he's left, our linebackers have dropped off. So could he bring some of that to the whole defense? What are your guys' thoughts on what kind of scheme he would run, or does he bring that same type of thing to our defense? Vaughn?
Go ahead, Mom.
I think, listen, Al Golden is a hell of a football coach. He college football, he was successful. I know there's some controversy at Miami, but he got Temple to win 9 games. I mean, you're not a good coach. I mean, to get Temple to win 9 games back in those days, that was huge, a huge accomplishment. I think he's going to be a little bit of an extension of Lou Anarumo. He'll definitely be a little different. He had a lot of success here for our linebackers. I think the staff, obviously, they think highly of him. So this management, he's done great at Notre Dame. They could easily win the national championship there. His defense, he's got some hell of a players there. I think the Bengals also want the fact that he's been in college the last 2 years. He's going to be an extension of the scouting process because the draft is coming up. He's been around the college ranks, the Big Ten. He sees what's going on there. I know Notre Dame isn't part of a conference, but still, you could say they're Big Ten. But he's going to be tough. He's going to be an extension of Lou. Maybe I guess since he's in the college ranks, he's had success there. That's going to bode well for our young defensive players that have not blossomed under Lou Anarumo. So they're hoping that he can do that. He knows about the AFC North. He was here for a couple of years. So he's well-rounded. I'm not totally against it. I'm not. But, I just Dennis Allen and Eberflus, they've had really good success as defensive coordinators. I think the Bengals should take the safe, conservative route and hire one of those guys. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Al Golden will be the coach on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week.
So go ahead. Well, I was just going to follow up on that. Do you think that they pretty sure he's good, like they have a deal in place, or are they just waiting to talk to him? I mean, they probably could talk to him, but he's making a championship run. Is it just let's wait?
They would never announce it. Yeah, they would never announce that. The last thing they want to do is disrupt Notre Dame and their preparations for the national championship game. But I guarantee you, low-level talks, phone conversations. Hey, if you would take the job, who do you want? Who you're looking at? I guarantee you that there's been a lot of talking behind the scenes, and they don't want this to get out because they don't want to distract Notre Dame and Freeman from preparing for Ohio State. I really think, I could be wrong, this is just my gut feeling, I think a deal's already in place, the parameters, let's put it that way. And he's going to be the defensive coordinator, and he's not going to be cheap. He's going to cost more than Lou Anarumo.
He might cost close to what Zach makes.
No. He makes 2.25 with Notre Dame. He'll get close to that. Zach makes 4.5. The Bengals, there's no way they'll pay him $4 million. They might pay him 2.5, which to me is stunning for the Bengals.
Jake?
Well, I don't know what to think about Al Golden. I mean, I'm with Mon. I want a guy that's got more NFL experience calling a defense. I think Al Golden is a heck of a football coach. Listen, I guarantee you that Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt are praying that Al Golden is the defensive coordinator. I mean, he got both of those guys paid a lot of money. He is a heck of a football coach. I'm with Mon here. I want a guy that's got more NFL experience. I also think Mon's right. I think my gut is telling me that there is already something in place with Al Golden. I think that's why they released 2 more defensive staff members this week. I think that he's already got a plan in place. They've already had those talks with him about who would you hire and who would you keep and who would you get rid of. And, the Bengals kept a couple of defensive coaches, and I just find that very odd. The whole thing makes me nervous. I hope Al Golden comes in and changes the defensive mentality of this football team. But I want a veteran guy that has called defense in the NFL for a couple years and has had success. And Al Golden hasn't done that. He's had a lot of great college, a great college career, and obviously he's obviously good working with young players. I think maybe Mon is right about that as well. Is that they're looking at that. There's got to be a way to develop some of these guys that we're about to talk about. I think Al Golden is going to be the DC, and I think it's going to be next week, and I think we're all going to be like, man, Al Golden, that's what we waited for. But, it is what it is.
I'll counter with something there, because I would argue that getting rid of Duffner and getting rid of the other guy that they just did is a sign that it's not Golden. It's not a retread, because if you're bringing in Al Golden, unless he has beef with those two coaches, he's been on your staff. He's worked with those guys before. You probably can tell him that, hey, these are our guys. You're not getting rid of them. They're not coaching specific position groups. So what's it going to hurt to have them on the staff? So I'd argue that maybe that's a sign that they've talked to these other guys and said, hey, if you're the guy, would you be okay keeping these guys? And they said, no, we have our own guys. So I'll counter with that. But that being said, let's get on to what we're really here for, grading the 2024 Bengals defense. Throw some of the big stats out there. Bengals defense gave up 25.5 points per game, which was 25th in the league. They gave up an average of 348.3 yards per game, 26th in the league. Points per play, 0.399, which was 26th. Yards per play, 5.4. Well, that's horrible. And that actually was 17th in the league. That seems really bad. Opponent's third down conversion rate, the opponents converted 42.03% of the time on third down, 23rd worst in the league. Opponents converted 59.26% of fourth downs, 19th in the league. This is a big one. Opponents' red zone scoring, 67.92% of the time. Opponents scored in the red zone. That's 30th in the league. That's a big one. Lou lean on that bend but don't break mantra, and we broke a lot this last season. And opponents' touchdowns a game, 3.1, which was 28th in the league. So with that being said, let's get into grading position by position. We're going to start with the defensive ends. That's the one bright spot on this league. So why don't we go first? Jake, why don't you give us your thoughts on the defensive end play? Talk about the highlights, the lowlights, and give us a grade A through F for defensive ends.
Well, all those stats you just read off, Eric, that's obviously why Lou and the defensive staff is being turned over. Again, you could say what you want to about Lou, but those numbers are historically bad. Real quick, I think the one that really jumped off to me was the Bengals gave up 53 touchdowns this year on defense. That was tied with the Browns for the 30th, for ranked 30th in the NFL. There's only 32 teams, boys. That is not very good. Defensive ends, obviously the one bright spot on this football team. I shouldn't say the one, but there's a handful of bright spots on this football team's defense. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson is elite. He is, you could argue, one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. 17 and a half sacks, obviously led the NFL this year. Had 46 tackles, 19 tackles for loss. But as a whole, guys, the defensive ends, this team only had 36 sacks, 25 and a half sacks coming from the defensive end position, 17 and a half of those from one player, guys. That is awful. That means 8 sacks came from the rest of the defensive ends on this football team. Joseph Ossai, I think you could say toward the end of the season was a bright spot. He finished with 5 total sacks, but guys, those all came in the last 7 games of the season. He tied Hendrickson for 46 total tackles. Hubbard, 2 sacks. Again, we all know the Hubbard story and, with the injuries and everything that piled up. I think I'm going to tell you one of the reasons why Lou got fired, and his name's Miles Murphy. This is a guy who, again, he shows signs of being a player in this league, but guys, he played 13 games and registered 0 sacks. That is not good when you draft an edge rusher in the first round and you get that kind of production. Only 20 tackles from Miles Murphy. Again, I think, with Trey and how good of a player he is, it's the only reason this grade is not a failing grade, because I think we can all say the rest of the defensive end room just has not been good. It just hasn't. And it really hasn't been good for 2 years. I gave, this was a tough one. I gave this group a C+, and the plus was only because of Trey Hendrickson. Without Trey, this team, this part of this team is an easy F, because Trey Hendrickson brings that much to the grade itself. So I go C+ for the defensive end room. Mon, what are your thoughts on this this part of the defense?
Well, I have PFF pulled up right here. I know a lot of people don't care for PFF, but it's just a tool that we use. There's a bunch of great sites out there, but they do a great job of rating players. 4 defensive ends on this roster played a lot of snaps, and they rate the 4 defensive ends on the Bengals roster that played the most snaps out of the whole roster. Out of 118 defensive ends in the NFL, Trey Hendrickson, it's not just pass rush. They look at stopping the run all around. Trey Hendrickson ranked 8th out of 118. Sam Hubbard ranked 82 out of 118. Joseph Osai, 84 out of 118. Miles Murphy, 90 out of 118. That shows you how dominant Trey Hendrickson was. He had no supporting cast. Problem I have with this team, Miles Murphy, you're right, Jake, he didn't have any sacks, but the first 10, 11 games of the season, he was playing 10, 15 snaps a game. Finally, he started paying 20, 25, 30. He was active. He had a lot of pressures. He didn't get the actual sacks, but he helped. I actually thought he looked pretty good. Yeah, I would like to see him finish and get some sacks, but, Cedric Johnson got a sack because of him. Some of these other guys did too, and he played well. I'm still high on him. Joseph Osai, I think he had a 5-game stretch where he had a sack in each game. We saw flashes there. That's a tough roster decision. Are we going to give him another contract to try to come back? We haven't. It hasn't been consistent with him. He's been injured a lot. Sam Hubbard, a great Bengal, but he just hasn't been the same. He's had those lower leg injuries. Guys, he was giving us nothing on the stat sheet. And it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out there. But a lot of other young guys that weren't rated by PFF. Cedric Johnson really flashed towards the end of the season. They have got to get better. It's just that is not acceptable. C+. I think that's a fair rating. You're right. Without Trey, it would be if we could go below an F, I would. I mean, if there was such a thing, and
negative F,
I would say, hey man, take 2 years off and come back to school another time. It's just, if I could give I would. But if you look, the 3 other defensive ends that PFF registered because they played the most snaps, they were in the lower 10 percentile of the NFL.
Crazy.
It's got to get better. We have got to get better.
Easy.
That's another reason we talked about it, Lou Anarumo. These guys, they're talented. They have to play more snaps. I'm not banging on Sam Hubbard. Sam Hubbard is a great Bengal. But are you telling me Sam Hubbard playing with one leg is better than Cedric Johnson? Better than Miles Murphy? Come on, man. We can't have that mentality. We just can't have that. And if his $10 million a year salary had something to do with that, having him play, shame on the Bengals front office for being that way.
I think too, guys, you look at this team, we've talked about how poorly this team drafts offensive line and develops offensive line. Guys, defensive line wise, it's right up there. I mean, our best defensive lineman was a free agent by far. I think you have to go all the way back to probably Carlos Dunlap. And then before that, maybe Michael Johnson. I mean, this team has failed miserably drafting edge rushers. Miserably. Again, we harp on the offensive line and how bad the Bengals draft that position. Guys, the edge rush position might be worse than the offensive line. We never talk about it because of guys like Trey Hendrickson. But good Lord, Mon, you're right. I mean, the Bengals have got to find a way to start drafting productive defensive ends. You cannot draft a defensive end in the first round and him not register a sack. Good Lord, just absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Mon, why don't you give us your official grade? I know you said below F.
No, I said I agree. I agreed with Jake's. I agreed with C+. I agree with that.
Okay, so we got Trey is the one that brings the whole class up. He's the because we have Trey. We all passed the group assignment. Is that where we're at?
Yes.
C. That was my transcript. C.
Okay. I know. If you could get below an F, Coach Owens might know.
Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. This grading report card for the defense looks kind of like mine for a couple of years.
F minus. All right. Moving on. Let's go. We probably should have finished with this C because I don't know if it's going to get much better, but let's go to the defensive tackles. Let's start with Mon. Why don't you give us your thoughts on the defensive tackle play this year and give us the grade?
Pretty much similar to the defensive ends. It was limited. BJ Hill, going by PFF again. I know that isn't for everybody, but PFF ranked 125 defensive tackles. He was 24th out of 125. Sheldon Rankins was 74th out of 125, but he was injured most of the year. Very limited production. I think that's a very generous score by PFF on Sheldon Rankins.
That's very generous.
That's very generous. Chris Jenkins, rookie, 110 out of 125. His rankings are a little poor on PFF. He definitely flashed, gave us 3 sacks, but he was overpowered also. I think another year in the weight room, he does like to work out. I think he has a lot of potential. He's not going to be like his dad. He's 60 pounds lighter than him, but I think he's only going to get better. McKinley Jackson is the guy. He didn't play enough snaps to get ranked. He really, I think he's going to have a bright future. Overall, J2 Afele, you're going to see, I think out of all the roster spots on the Cincinnati Bengals in 2025, you're going to see the most turnover there. They kept 5 last year. I could see 2 to 3 new faces on that defensive tackle in that defensive tackle room next year. What are they going to do with BJ Hill? BJ Hill wants, he's making $10 million a year. He's a free agent. I'd love to have him back, but the price has got to be right. Saying that, he's a good player, but I would like a little bit more from that spot. Are you going to give him another $10 million a year contract? I'd say $10 million, add another 5, and get somebody that's a little more dynamic. I don't think Rankins will be a Bengal next year. I think that was I just don't think it worked out. That's going to be $12 million saved. But I'm really high on the rookies last year. At least they got to play a lot of snaps, and they're only going to get better. And they showed some promising things this year.
What do you got for grade?
I'll give them a C also.
Oh, that's generous. Go ahead, Jake.
It is generous, but BJ Hill, he did it.
Oh man, guys, this is bad. This is a bad one. Again, I look at I try to look at the whole spectrum of playing this position, and not just. This is not a position where you're expecting a guy to come in like we had back with Larry Ogunjobi and BJ Hill, getting all those sacks together back in 21. So this is not a position where you're looking for that. This year, the interior defensive line registered 9 sacks as a group. BJ Hill with 3, Jenkins with 3. Guys, to me, Sheldon Rankins, I mean, this is, and I don't know what's going on with the guy, and I hope he's okay. I really do. But what a bad look for the Bengals going out and letting DJ Reader walk and bringing in a guy that plays 7 games. You're paying him $12 million. He registered 18 tackles and 1 sack. That is such a bad look. This interior of the defensive line is why the Bengals, and I think they finished like 19th or 20th against the run, but that's only because those last 5 games, those 2 rookies played really well and helped slow it down. Guys, we were like 29th, but I think before those last 4 or 5 games where we went on that winning streak, and those young guys played well. Jenkins and McKinley Jackson, obviously bright spots. I'm excited to see how those guys develop, but I'm with Mon. I don't think BJ Hill is back. Sheldon Rankins definitely isn't back. Tua Faley definitely isn't back. This is going to be a completely different room next year. This year, guys, to me, just not very good at all. And there's no Trey Hendrickson to help boost this grade. I give them a D, like a 65, 64. Like, I mean, they're like borderline D minus. I think this is honestly the weakest point of our team on the defensive side of the ball. I hope the Bengals figure it out, because if they don't, we are in serious trouble again next year. But I do like Jenkins, and I do like McKinley Jackson. But as a group, I give them a D.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody would argue for anything higher than this. Unfortunately, we're here. We're looking for a new coach because of that. Go ahead, Mon.
No, I just get frustrated how, again, I think this is part of the reason that Lou's not here anymore. What gave you any inkling that Zach Carter could start the first 4 games of the season?
I agree.
I mean, what did you see the year before and the year before that justify starting him? The Bengals with DJ Reader couldn't stop the run his last year here. And it wasn't DJ Reader's fault, but DJ Reader can't play 65 snaps a game. So when he would come out, the Bengals were getting gashed. And the depth has always been poor. They have got to get better. The defensive line, to me, up the middle, the interior defensive line, linebacker play, and safety is what has destroyed this defense. And we're going to talk about the other ones here in a few minutes, but you guys are going to connect the dots.
Well, and to your point, we leaned on DJ Reader for years, and he made up for a lot of other people's inadequacies. I mean, DJ Reader took on multiple gaps and still made the tackle. And not only we talked about his leadership in the locker room, but he made a lot of those players look better than they were. Maybe he made Lou look better than Lou was, because when you have a guy like that, he's 2 players for the price of 1. Transitioning to our next position group, just moving back, let's go to the linebackers. Was a very, very touch and go year for our linebackers, especially when Logan Wilson went out. We thought ADG was going to take a step. Don't know if he took a step in the right direction. And Jermaine Pratt definitely took a step in the wrong direction. I do believe he led the team in tackles, but I don't think that was a good stat. I think it was more of a production of, missed tackles and them getting to the second level. So let's start with Jake. Why don't you talk linebackers and give us a grade?
Okay. You said it. Jermaine Pratt led the team in tackles, 143 total. That's a career high for him. He did have 80 solo tackles. 20-plus missed tackles is a lot. Again, that might not seem like a lot, but that is a lot for your Mike linebacker. For the middle of your defense to miss 20-plus tackles is a lot. He did have 2 picks as well. But I definitely think you could say that when losing Logan Wilson really hurt the linebacking room. Guys, Logan Wilson missed the last 6 games. he was still second on the team in tackles with 104 tackles. Again, I know he didn't have all the bright and shiny plays and the interceptions that he usually has, but Logan Wilson is still a dude. He is, and I think he has got to be the centerpiece. Him and Trey both have to be the centerpiece of this defense. So I think that's impressive that Logan Wilson finished second on the team in tackles and missed the last 6 games of the season. Obviously, if he doesn't, he is way up there in tackles, 160 plus. I do think the one bright spot is Akeem Davis-Gaither. I mean, this is a guy who has been a special teams guy his whole career. And this year when Logan goes down, Akeem Davis-Gaither steps in. He's third on the team. He finishes third on the team with tackles, with 82 tackles. I thought he played really well. I did. I don't think he's great in coverage, although he had a pick. But I do think he is a good, strong tackler in the box. I think Akeem Davis-Gaither played well. Like I said, I think he was a bright spot of this position group. But this position group, losing DJ Reader, Eric, you talked about it just a minute ago. With DJ, you didn't get a lot of pressure, but man, you were able to stop the run because DJ Reader is a 2-gap player, and that opens up a lot for the linebackers. Without DJ Reader, this group it's struggled, which it's going to. I mean, when NFL caliber guards are able to get to the second level, because there's not a gap that's cut. You got a guy like Zach Carter trying to play 2-gap. There's going to be a lot of offensive linemen getting clean to the second level to these linebackers. So I gave this room a C, a solid C, because I do think Logan Wilson is still very special. I think he's one of the top 10 linebackers in the NFL. And Jermaine Pratt, I don't think I'm ready to just throw it in on him. I think he's still a good football player. I do think we need to get some more athleticism at that position, but I give him a solid C.
Mon, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with the C. Pro Football Focus, we had 3 linebackers play enough snaps to get rated by PFF. Logan Wilson was 20 out of 83 linebackers. He did play well before the injury. Davis-Gaither was 58 out of 83 ranked linebackers, and Jermaine Pratt was 56 out of 83 linebackers. Is there another Bengal player on this roster that had a more uneven year than Jermaine Pratt? Yeah. He would have some flashes. He would get a key interception, but he was just all over the place. The missed tackles, he just looks stiff and unathletic. Davis-Gaither had his moments. He's more athletic. I was expecting a little bit more from him. I was a little excited he was going to get more snaps there. I don't know how that room is going to shake out, guys. Logan Wilson will definitely be there. He's our best linebacker. I could see 2 new faces. The Bengals only keep 5 or 6 linebackers. I like Shaka Hayward, what he did on special teams. I thought he came in and looked good. He looked athletic. I would not be surprised if there's 2 to 3 new faces in that linebacker room. But up the middle, this defense is critically weak. From defensive tackle, linebacker play to safety, that is the death knell of this defense. And they have to get better at all 3 levels. You mentioned it. When DJ Reader was healthy, when the Bengals were going to the AFC Championship games, those linebackers could flow. No guards were on them. Seek and destroy. You haven't been able to do that the last couple of years. You really haven't. Last year, it was no Von Bell, no Jesse Bates. Hey, we have to go back into coverage more, try to be the glue to the secondary. They had to think more. This year, the defensive tackle play was inconsistent. I don't know, man. It's complimentary football on all 3 levels. It hasn't been there. Linebacker play has to get better. I give him a C.
And I want to say this real quick because I think Hayward and I think Meta, I think both of those guys are good young linebackers, like Mon said. But if for some reason you part ways with Jermaine Pratt, which I think is a bad idea, guys, you better bring someone in that can replace a Jermaine Pratt. It's not anybody that's on the roster right now. I know everybody thinks that Hayward and Meta and those guys are ready to roll, but I think they're great young players, and I think there's a lot of potential, but you can't let Jermaine Pratt walk. You really can't. I mean, I don't think you can part ways with him yet. I'm not ready to. I think he's still solid.
They need athleticism. This whole defense needs it, and I just don't think they have enough at those spots right now. But it's going to be interesting to monitor. He played really, really well in games. Pratt did. He really did. Yeah. But there were some games you're like, wow, man, this guy's a vet.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
See.
Well, and the big thing with Pratt, he doesn't have the athleticism that we could replace him with a much faster, much younger guy there. I think that Pratt is kind of that. I guess we'll say Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen won't like it, but Scottie Pippen with Jordan was phenomenal. You know, when you remove Jordan, Scottie Pippen was okay. He was still a great player, but he didn't change games. When you have Pratt back there with Logan Wilson, Pratt's able to react, chase down the plays. He doesn't have to be thinking too much. He can react and use his instincts. And we saw that even at last game where with a nice interception. But when Wilson's not there, he's not the same linebacker. So I think it could be a pivotal decision this year. They might walk away from him. Now, Mon brought it up that he doesn't know if there was another player on this team that had more of an up and down year than Jermaine Pratt, and that will give us a nice transition to cornerbacks. Cam Taylor-Britt came into this year where everybody thought he was going to be the lockdown number one. Dax Hill was switching positions. We thought he would be shaky to start. Well, it turns out that Cam Taylor-Britt was very, he had some flashes, that great pick against Kansas City, but he seemed to be shaky. Then we go through the season. Dax Hill looks like he's our lockdown number one. He gets injured. We got to roll with DJ Turner. He looks like he's going to be a great cornerback. He gets injured. We couldn't have more up and down year than we had for the cornerbacks. This will be an interesting grade. I'm interested to see what you guys have on this. Jake, why don't you start us off? Your thoughts on the corners and your grade.
Well, like you said it. I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt, I think we all had very high expectations. And again, let me say this before I give this grade. When your defensive line is not very good, your corners are going to struggle. And I think some of what we saw, some of that blame has got to go to the defensive line. When quarterbacks are sitting back there with 5 seconds to throw the football, these are NFL caliber players. And it really at any level, though, of football, if you can't pressure the quarterback, you can't cover somebody for 5 or 6 seconds. Again, before I give those grades, I just want to throw that out there that our defensive line is so poor, besides Trey Hendrickson, that these back end guys are going to struggle. Cam Taylor-Britt, 77 tackles, 5th on the team, which is really not a good stat. He did have 3 picks, the 1 pick six. He led he led the team in pass breakups. He had quite a few pass breakups with 16. You said it earlier, the injuries at this position. DJ Turner misses the last 6 games. Dax Hill misses the last 12 games. Neither one of those guys really got any footing underneath them. So Fig Newton steps in, and I thought Newton played well, to be honest. A rookie coming in and having to play that position is tough. He registered a pick. He had 7 pass breakups. He played good at times. There were some times where he looked like a rookie. But I thought Newton was a bright spot. I think he can play in this league. You guys know I'm a big Mike Hilton fan. I want Mike Hilton. I hope he's a priority to get extended in the offseason. Hilton, 73 tackles. He struggles in coverage, guys. I think we all know that. But, man, 12 tackles for loss, which was 2nd on the team behind Trey Hendrickson. Mike Hilton He's such a great tackler. He's such a great blitzer. He plays so well in the box. Again, I know he's not great in pass coverage, but he is probably, you could say, the second best tackler on this football team, playing the nickel corner. So Mike Hilton is the reason why this position group did not get an F from me. I just think Mike Hilton is such a hell of a player. And like I said, I think he's got to be a priority coming back. 73 tackles from that position. He was all over the field. I gave this group a D+. A D+, 67, 68, somewhere in there. Again, bad D-line play and injuries really hampered this group. So I'm going to give him a D+.
Mon?
I'm going to give him a C. And promising pieces there. I think that this could, with the right coach, develop into one of the strengths of the team. It has to be the right coach, though. They've invested so much in this defensive backfield the last 3 drafts. They have got to develop some of these guys. They really have. 7 of our last 24 draft picks have been defensive backs. Jack Sill's going to come back from injury. Marco Wilson really looked good. They picked him up free agency. He flashed. But Pro Football Focus ranked 4 of our cornerbacks that played enough snaps. DJ Turner was 46 out of 117. You're right, Jake. He looked really good before that injury. That was a knock on him, though, coming out of Michigan. He's a little smaller. Is his body going to hold up? But he looked really good when he did play. Josh Newton, rookie, had some rough spots. He really did. 77 out of 117 on Pro Football Focus, but he did flash the last 4 games. The more he played, the more comfortable he looked. Hopefully, he continues trending up. Cam Taylor, Brett, one of the biggest disappointments of the Bengals season. He was really – that great interception in the Kansas City game was the highlight of his season. He was all over the place. I don't know if, you just got the yips. I don't know what's going on. Pro Football Focus had him ranked 66 out of 117. He has got to get better there. Mike Hilton, pound for pound, the toughest guy on defense. When your cornerback is the most physical player on your defense, you got problems.
Yep.
He was easily the most physical player. They have to find a way to keep him on the roster. The price has to be right. He's going to want to get paid well. He deserves it. But they have so many young players there that are ready to jump in at the nickel. They have to keep him on there because it's bigger than play. He's sort of the soul of the team.
Yes.
And they have – they lost that with DJ Reader. They lost that with other players. Mike Hilton can still play, but he's like another coach on the field. And he's – I don't know, man. He's so important to the locker room. They got to find a way to keep him. Pro Football Focus had him ranked 15th, number 15 out of 177, out of 117, I'm sorry. So Pro Football Focus had him ranked very highly. He's actually the second highest ranked Bengal defender on PFF. Trey Hendrickson is the top rated Bengal defender, then Mike Hilton is number 2. So they got to find a way to keep him. I think they will. This cornerback room, there's so much potential there. Whoever this next coach is, your success, this team success, it's going to be dependent on what you do with the cornerback room. I give them a C. The next group, oof, let's get the safeties.
All right, good transition here. Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I haven't seen any Fs or any talks of that. You guys are being a little bit more generous. You're definitely that teacher that's ready to get off to the summer break and go hang out on the beach, because these grades are a little more generous than I thought. So transitioning to our final group, let's talk about the safeties. There wasn't a lot of great stuff to talk about here. There is a case to be made for maybe Geno Stellan saving next year's job. We can talk about that a little bit later, but of any group that I would expect to get a failing grade, it would be the safeties. So let's start with Mon this time. Break down that debacle that was the safety room this year. Did it all go wrong because Lou wouldn't play the youth, or what was the reasoning? Go ahead.
the reasoning this safety room is so bad is they let the best player on the roster leave 2 years ago.
Let it go.
It's an F. I'm giving it an F.
Okay.
And Pro Football Focus ranked 3 safeties that played the snaps. Out of 98 safeties, Jordan Battle was number 84. Von Bell was 62, and Geno Stone was 84. Geno Stone, the last 4 or 5 games, played better. Jordan Battle, I'm high on. I'm very high on Jordan Battle. I wish he would have played sooner. I still think he has a very important role on this team. The athleticism back there, your safeties have to be athletic. Geno Stone is probably the worst tackler on the team. And guys, he looked good against Cooper Rush. He looked good against, the quarterback for the Browns. He looked good against some of the, guys that aren't going to start a lot of games in the NFL. And our safety play, to me, is the Achilles heel of this team. The safety play the last 2 years has absolutely killed us. And I think it's just, they're the glue of our secondary, and especially in Lou Anarumo's defense. Safeties are so important. They let us down. The play was really poor. I think Jordan Battle's locked to make this roster, but if you want to talk about turnover next year, that safety room it's going to be big. Are there some young guys there with really good athletic talent? Absolutely. Could Dax Hill wind up back at safety with a new coach? Maybe. Dejon Anthony, I think it could be a great player. He's very athletic. Let's see how he develops. Jordan Battle is a thumper. Like I said, he's going to have a role on this team. But I'm sorry. I think Geno Stone is going to be one and done.
Jake?
Oh, boy. I mean, this
you want Nick Scott back?
I'm not there, but Mon's right. I mean, you want to look at Mon's right. You want to look at what the issue is. The issue is the Bengals let Mon said their best. I'll say their 4th best player, behind Burrow and Chase and Hendrickson. Letting Jesse Bates walk was so detrimental to this football team. I just can't overstate that. And I know everybody's like, oh, get off the Jesse Bates thing. He's gone. Yes, he is gone. But we still have to look at the ramifications of letting him walk. I know, right? It's
a big word for coach.
I'm happy it came out clear. Listen, we can't overlook that, though. We have to look at how bad this position has been since Jesse Bates has left. It has been historically bad. This year, Mon just said Von Bell was 62nd, I think, ranking wise out of all the safeties in the league. That was the highest in the 60s, and Von Bell didn't even start. I mean, I'm with you. I'm a huge Jordan Battle fan. When we drafted Jordan Battle, I said right after the draft, he is my favorite player that we drafted that year. I'm going to stick with Jordan Battle. I'm going to stick with him. I believe in him. I think there is a role on this team for him. As far as I'm concerned, the rest of the safeties can go bye-bye. Keep Jordan Battle and completely revamp the room. Tyson Anderson he's a hell of a special teams player, but he hasn't broke the starting lineup. And how long has he been on this football team? Dejon Anthony, I know his athleticism is through the roof, but I just look at it this way. This safety room was so bad. If you could not break the starting lineup on this safety room, you are not a starting safety in the NFL. It's just, oh my God. And again, in Lou Anarumo's defense, Mon said it. That's the glue. Those guys on the back end. Lou was a defensive backs coach. That was supposed to be his specialty. We thought bringing Von Bell back was going to help that. Oh my God. And then you bring Nick Scott in last year. I mean, it's just been a revolving door of just mediocre play since Jesse Bates has left. Geno Stone, 81 tackles. He did have 4 picks. But again, like Mon said, in the big games, Geno Stone was nowhere to be found in the big games. And those are the games where you need a guy like that. And, you know, he had 81 tackles, but I think we all know he should have had about 120 something tackles. That's how many tackles he missed. I give this room, I'm with Mon, I give it an F, borderline F minus. I think the Bengals, I think this room right here, we talk about why Lou is not coaching on this team anymore. And I think that this room, the safety room, is the main reason why Lou Anarumo is interviewing for other jobs, because that was supposed to be where he was his specialty. Mon.
Go ahead, Mon.
Yeah, I just want one last thing. I know it's going over an hour here. I think this is where the front office failed Lou Anarumo. Okay, his best 2 years as defensive coordinator. Guys, is this just me talking out my, you know what? Jesse Bates and Von Bell were top 5 tandem safety in the NFL.
They were.
I feel very comfortable saying that. They were the glue to this defense. They put everybody in place. Them together, that was the key to Lou Anarumo's defense. He's going to wind up in Atlanta and probably try to recreate that magic. But those guys did a lot to get us to a Super Bowl and back-to-back AFC championship games. And I'm just telling you right now, Jesse Bates is going to go down with the Max Montoyas, some of the worst free agents that have defected and left to go to other teams, and how it affected the Bengals. It was a horrible decision, and I hope this front office has learned from that. We'll talk about the offense next week. There's some big signings there. I hope they don't drop the ball there.
Yeah, one can say that Geno Stone is the rubber cement of this defense. You know, he doesn't really hold up when he gets a little bit of pressure on him. Before we get out of here, it's a little frustrating watching all these teams play meaningful football and then not acting like it means anything to them. With that being said, we do have some playoff games this weekend. So I'm going to throw them up on the screen, get your guys' thoughts on them, and maybe you can give us some predictions on who you think is going to prevail. We have Texans versus Chiefs. I know our rooting interest is with Joe Mixon and with the Texans, but why don't you guys give us your quick thoughts on whether the Texans have a chance and your predictions. Let's start with Mon.
I would love to see the Texans win. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Kansas City's going to win. They're well rested. The Texans, I'm sorry, guys. Their defense is pretty solid. Their offense, they're not an impressive team. I know they're in the divisional rounds. We're not. Kansas City's going to win this game. I think they're going to win it comfortably. Are we going to just go one at a time, Eric?
Yeah, we'll go each game. You want to give a score prediction on that?
24-10, Kansas City.
Okay. Jake, what do you got for Texans, Chiefs?
Yeah, this isn't going to be a game. Mon's right. I mean, the Houston Texans do not belong in the playoffs. They play in the worst division in football, and that is the only reason why they – and that's saying a lot because the NFC South is really bad. But the AFC South is absolutely atrocious. You saw how bad the Texans were last week. I mean, again, I know they beat the brakes off of the Chargers, but the Chargers are not a good football team either. The Texans defense played really well last week, but going into Arrowhead, there's only one guy that can go in there and beat the Chiefs, and he's not in the playoffs. I say the Chiefs win this 31-14, and I don't even think this game is close.
Yeah, and there's a note. It's supposed to be really, really cold in Kansas City this weekend, so it could lend itself to a Joe Mixon game. But we did see that they didn't have much more than Joe Mixon last week, so I'm going to be rooting for the Texans. But I think I agree with you guys. Baltimore going to Buffalo. Everybody's going to be rooting for Buffalo on this. But Baltimore is actually favored. I don't know how that really happened, but Jake, why don't you give us your prediction first on this one?
Go Bills. That's my prediction. Go Bills. As hard as that is to say, because I'm not a Bills fan. I'm not a Josh Allen fan. But but there is one team in the NFL that tops all of the hatred, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. Listen, going into Buffalo, the Bills are playing really well. Josh Allen, he makes plays when he needs to. But this Bills defense and the Bills run game is so impressive. Again, I just think to myself, God, if Burrow had that run game and that defense that Josh Allen has, it's Super Bowl every year. It is a wrap. Josh Allen's very lucky to have what he has in Buffalo. I think we're going to see playoff Lamar Jackson. Listen, Lamar Jackson and the Steelers did not play well against the Steelers. Derrick Henry carried that football team on his shoulders, and that Ravens defense played really well. But I wouldn't say the Ravens would be happy with as poorly as they looked against the Steelers. I think the Bills win this game, and I think they win. I'm going to say 27-17. Buffalo wins this football game, and it's Buffalo, Kansas City in the AFC Championship, Mom.
I don't think Buffalo is going to lose this divisional round. I think that it's going to be absolutely bonkers in there. I think playoff Lamar is going to show up.
Yes.
And I think Buffalo is going to win this game. I think it's going to be like 28-17. Baltimore's defense has looked so much better the last few games. I think that has a lot to do with the running a game. I think, Jackson has started to run a little bit more, to help the defense out. Obviously, we know what the big running back can do for him. But Buffalo is going to be ready for that. Buffalo is going to win this game. There's no way they're going to lose this divisional game at home. Baltimore is going to go home.
Love it. The Commanders take on the Detroit Lions. Mon, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, everybody loves the Lions. I playing at home. That's going to be hard for Washington. Washington has a hell of an offense. They got a sneaky good defense. Detroit looked so good the last time they played against the Vikings. Their defense was injury riddled, really showed up. The Vikings are leaking oil. They looked really bad in their playoff loss. I mean, was it the defense of the Lions or was it the bad Vikings team that was falling apart? If there's an upset special this week, I'm going to call this one an upset special potentially. Washington has that kind of offense that can score some points. I am going to stick with Detroit 31-30 in a win over Washington.
Jake, what do you got?
I feel weird saying this. I feel like I said this a lot this episode, but I agree with Mon. It's so weird.
Maybe that's the season's problem. You guys have agreed too much.
I think this is the upset special. I do think the Lions win, like Mon said, but I think this is the closest game of the weekend. I'm going to say Lions win 28-27 on a last-second field goal. This Lions team is so impressive. You look at all of the injuries on the defensive side of the ball. This team has put so many guys on IR, including their best defensive player on IR. Washington has they've looked good at times. I said it from the beginning. Jayden Daniels, I thought, was the best quarterback coming out of this past draft. I like what Washington has put together. However, this Detroit team, I just feel like they're destined to play in the Super Bowl. And when you're a team that has played through all those injuries and you're still winning games handily, that's very impressive. And that's coaching. And that is why the Lions have the best coaching staff in the playoffs. Both coordinators are going to be head coaches, and their head coach is one of my favorites in the NFL. I think the Lions win this game 28-27.
Like it. I really thought that Jake's upset special would be our last game that we're going to talk about. The Los Angeles Staffords take on the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Jake, why don't you give us your story about how Matthew Stafford is going to dominate this game?
Well, he is, and the Rams are going to win this game. I don't think it's an upset. I don't think it's an upset. I think the Rams right now are playing the hottest football. Listen, you talk about a team just like the Bengals that started 1-4, but Rams started 1-4, Bengals started 1-4. The only difference is the Bengals play in a much tougher division than the Rams do. Both teams started 1-4. Both teams got hot at the end of the year. The only difference, like I said, the Bengals play in a tougher division than the Rams. But yes, I think Jalen Hurts is one of the most overrated football players in the league. This passing game for the Eagles is atrocious. And I don't think this is an upset. I think the Rams go into Philadelphia, and I think they beat the Eagles. And I'm going to say Rams win this one 30-24, Rams over the Eagles. Rams Lions in the NFC Championship. Mon?
Let me sound like Jake right now. The Rams are my favorite team that's remaining in the playoffs.
Don't say that to Eric. Don't say that to Eric.
I just want to say something. As a Bengal fan, I'm jealous of the Rams. I'm jealous. I just want to rehash something. 3 years ago, they went all in and traded 5-6 draft picks to build a team to go win a Super Bowl, and they won a Super Bowl. They beat us. They had no first, second, third round picks in a couple drafts. They're supposed to be rebuilding for the next 5 years. What do you do with 26 scouts? What do you do with an elite front office? You rebuild your team. They are one of the hottest teams. Watching them play the other night with Verse, Fisk, Young, all these guys they've drafted, Kobe Turner in the last 2 drafts. They are dominant NFL players. They're a good football team. Stafford is a good player. Saying that, I don't think it's going to be enough. I think the Eagles are the best team in football. I think the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl.
Really?
Jalen Hurts completed 13 passes last week. 13 passes. You know why? The offensive line, the defensive line, they're nasty. They control the line of scrimmage. Other teams don't have a chance. He completed 13 passes, and they dominated that game. I think the Eagles are the best team in football. I would love to see the Rams win. Really would. Mike Brown, Duke Tobin, look at the team that beat you in Super Bowl 56 and how they rebuilt this roster without first and second round picks in 2 drafts. You got to be kidding me, man. I mean, you guys got to look at that. It is so impressive. It's so impressive.
It's the best front office in football, Mon. Last year,
McVay is one of the top 3 coaches in football, if not the top.
Listen, they had the offensive and defensive rookie of the year last year. They're going to have the defensive rookie of the year this year. You listen. I absolutely am disgusted with the Rams stealing a Super Bowl from us. But I'm with you. I would give anything for the Bengals to have this front office that the Rams have. They are the best evaluators of talent in the NFL, and it's fact. It's not an opinion. It is factual. It's impressive. I hate it. I hate that they stole a Super Bowl from us. But look at what they've done. They just retooled through the draft and built this team again, this powerhouse. It's so frustrating. I want to say this, though. Watching the playoffs this past weekend has shown a couple things, but the main thing that it has shown is this. Joe Burrow is the best player in the NFL. He is the best quarterback in the NFL, and he is the best player in the NFL. And I'm going to be honest with you. There is a gap between him and the next quarterback. There is a gap. It is not close. It was terrible quarterback play this past weekend. Joe Burrow is the man, and that is not a homer take. That is actual fact. He is the best player in football, hands down. Eric, any last words from you, bud?
I mean, you can't say more than that. It's Joe Burrow or bust. 20 and Joe next year. We're right back there. One news and
right
one news note that just came across, or that I was just reminded of. They did announce the Germany game. It is going to be the Colts hosting that game this year. So the Bengals will not play in Germany this year. They still have the opportunity to be an away team in London, and they might have the chance to host the game in Madrid, which that's the one international game that hasn't dropped. So we'll see more to come on that. We should know by the next show that we do.
And hopefully by the next show, we know who the defensive coordinator is in Cincinnati.
We were all hyped to go to Germany, or possibly go to Germany. Going to a game in Spain would be pretty cool too. So
I'll take that.
I think the Pulse can make it there.
All right, guys. That's another edition of the Bengals Pulse. As always, if you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you check us out on all the awesome podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. As always, if you like this podcast, make sure you give us that 5-star review. We very much appreciate that. Guys, as always, follow Mon on Twitter at the Firemon. Follow me on Twitter at Coach Jake Owens 9. Follow Eric on Twitter at eFlash with 2 H's 88. Follow the Cincinnati Podcast Network on Twitter at Cincinnati Pod. As always, guys, follow the Bengals Pulse on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9. The same on Instagram without the at Bengals_Pulse9. And as always, guys, check out all the awesome podcasts right here on the Cincinnati Podcast Network. He is Eric. He is Mon. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse. Hoo day, Bengal fans. We will talk to you next week.